everyone. Shalom Erev Tov from Jerusalem, Israel. This is Mr. Lowell Joseph Gallen, founder of the Root and Branch Association Limited. Welcome to episode 3 of our monthly Root and Branch Association Drama Therapy Seminar, hosted by my friend of 10 years, Miss Laura L. Ledbedder of Riverdale, New York. And I'm very happy that for today's program, this is a real meeting of minds. Joining Laura is Mrs. Gilla Weiss, Mrs. Chava Dagan, and Mrs. Rivkah Asoulin, all of Israel. Am I right? Is someone in England? Gilla, are you in England?
Florida.
Florida and Israel, and Laura's in New York. And after 30 years in Israel, my head is still back in the Hudson Highlands, but physically I'm here in Jerusalem. And now, without further ado, let me hand the mic over to our host, Laura, and Laura's guests, Rivkah, Gilla, and Chava. Laura, it's all yours.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you just fine.
Sorry, I'm trying to figure this out.
We can hear you, Laura. We can hear you and see you.
Oh, okay, because you're breaking up a lot with me on my end. But anyhow, welcome. It's nice to meet you all, and thank you, Lowell. Sorry about the confusion the last time with the show. I thought it was, I read the email wrong and thought it was 1 p.m. my time, New York time. But all is well. Keeping busy and doing my work at the hospital and going to school and getting through the internship at Manhattan College, where I've been working on getting the license. And by May, I'll have to find something full-time and give the state 3,000 hours with a limit permit. So I'm on a journey now. Can you hear me?
Yep, Hatzlacha.
No?
Good luck with your journey.
Thank you. It's a journey. It's a lot of work. But I'm working with young adults, young kids with substance abuse issues. I was working with young adults, but I still do a little creative arts therapy with those folks. But I'm predominantly with the kids now at the hospital, and they're challenging, but they enjoy my work, and I try to be creative working with them, but it's not easy. They don't want to be there. They don't want to be in school. It's a you know, not an easy journey for them with the drug addiction, and it's very sad.
Are you mostly working with children who are addicted to drugs? Is that what you're doing right now?
Yeah. In my internship, it's a psychiatric hospital, and 4 days a week at our main hospital. We're connected on an inpatient adult unit with many different mental illnesses that the folks have, and it's like working full time between my hospital where I work 2 days and I'm up with the other program 3 days. So it's heavy. And then I go to school Wednesday night. It's full schedule. Yeah.
What do you find?
I enjoy it.
What do you find, or what do you believe might be the cause of some of these children being addicted to drugs and coming into this situation?
Because that's the question you asked. I asked one of our psychiatrists that question, and said that from developing, they're having peer pressure in school, home factors, dysfunctional family, broken families, parents, where they learn some of these learned behaviors, and some of them come from very good families and still drug addicted. He says it has something to do with the frontal lobe of their brains that are developing, and it's part of their makeup, their chemistry of the addiction.
So what we do with our show on Ancient Roots Mothering is we talk about exactly this, about how to maybe create a better foundation, better relationships between parents and children, to kind of preempt.
I agree. I think that's good because I do more mental health type of groups with them, because I found I wasn't having much freedom with creative art groups, and it was getting out of control, and they were taking advantage of my weakness. And I do meditation mindfulness where I was giving tea, like making the tea, smelling the herbs of different tea bags, and they like the sayings on the tea. And but now I have come boundaries and review 5 rules that they've created, because I always have new kids coming in the program every week, so we go over the rules, and then it's talk therapy, and they like it. Ways to exactly cover those topics you suggested, because it's they get their school when they come with teachers, and they have another group of come over, which is behavioral type. But it's hard trying to think of things to cover with them, and they're not focused. They're out. Their minds are wandering and getting distracted. I had to have 2 guys removed from my group because they were throwing things, and it was just getting out of control. So hard. But I'm doing it, up until May. I know I don't want to work with them. This isn't something on a full-time basis. It's very draining. It's not easy. Yeah. And your ideas, looking for kind of ideas. Something happened. I can't hear anything.
We're having difficulty with your reception a little bit. Gilla was asking you how old the children are that you're working with.
From 16 to 18. Yeah, there's some are 15. They're a young group, 8th, 9th, 10th grade, high school. It fluctuates.
Do you know when some
and I have
of these
boys, no girls right now.
Do you know when some of these behaviors started? Did it start just in the teen years, or did it start earlier on when they were younger?
It started in the teen years. Yeah, predominantly. Something about the school district, craziness. I'll tell you one story. We had a boy in the program. I didn't know him for 3 years. He was really hard to keep in school, and he had kept flunking the program because they get 4 weeks assigned. If they don't pass their toxic test, they do, urine on them, and they're still using. They repeat it another 4 weeks. Well, he was on and off for about 3 years. Just 2 weeks ago in New Rochelle, he got a gun and he killed another young man in a drug deal. So it was shocking for the other peers. I came in and the director was just very distraught that he would have done such a thing. But he did it. And they're involved in gangs, a lot of gang action. It's all over. Scary, but they're involved with it.
So one of the things that we've been learning about is how gangs and cults in general are able to draw people in with it's called love bombing, when people are just,
oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of surrounding them with this feeling of family, of camaraderie, of like a sibling set of connections that they're not having elsewhere in their lives. And building those strong bonds is kind of what keeps people in this cult or in gangs and this sort of thing. What we propose, Gilla and Chava and I, is that we try and build these relationships early on from infancy, and also to teach children. I mean, you're in a perfect position to work with these teens. I'm sure some of them are even dealing with teen pregnancy and this kind of thing, and helping them break that cycle and start to connect with their babies in those ways, so that hopefully they don't need to turn to some kind of outside source for that connection.
Right. No, it's really different. There's so many different diagnoses with each one of them. And we have one young man, he never had a father, he was adopted, and he said to me, and it broke my heart, my mom's a single parent, working parent, and she doesn't have time for me. And I don't know what it would ever be like to have a father. And he put his head down, and it was just so sad. It just broke my heart, you know.
My daughter, my teen daughter, has been talking about it. Another teen girl that she knows who's dealing with anxiety and OCD and a lot of different things. And it's a very similar story that she's saying, well, the parents don't have time for me and they don't understand me. And so we've been trying to make some connections with the family to try and like go out with the daughters, do a Rosh Chodesh, which is the Jewish monthly holiday of the women, where women don't work and they spend time in spiritual study or in nourishing themselves. And so what I was finding was it was so difficult for the mother to kind of come up with a time. And we've been going on like this for months now, where she's saying she's so busy with work. And I'm going, okay, we'll come to you in the morning. How about for breakfast? Or how about for lunch? Or
right, that's a good idea. Right.
Or how about for something? But it does need, I think if parents start to maybe change their priorities a little bit so that they're able to make time. I mean, usually we can make time for our priorities one way or the other. I had a woman come to the door today. She was collecting tzedakah. She was collecting charity. And she looked at one of my children who was wearing, these kind of slippers on her feet. And she says, oh, I bought something like that for one of my kids because I have a kid with sensory issues and he doesn't like to wear shoes. And I bought him these little slippers and he keeps them on and everything's great. And so I was just making conversation. I said, well, how old are your children? And she said, well, 3.5 and 5 months. And I said, wow, you have a 5-month-old baby and you're going door to door collecting charity for this organization or whatever. Shouldn't you be in bed with your feet up and nursing your baby and resting with your baby? And she, looked at me like, what are you talking about? And so she proceeded to it was really interesting. I wanted to talk with Gilla and Chava about it beforehand. She proceeded to kind of educate me as to how important it is for a woman with a 5-month-old baby to be able to leave the baby with somebody else, to get out and go do things for her own mind, to get a break, to get a vacation.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Well, that's what she said. But I didn't think that was wonderful at all. I was really concerned. To me, there seemed to be a disconnect between the mother and her 5-month-old baby. So anyway, we went for, a little bit further in the conversation. I said, oh, so who's with the baby? And she said, well, I haven't put the baby into daycare yet. And she said it a bit apologetically and embarrassed, because in Israel, we have a very daycare oriented culture where it's considered, virtue 6 weeks old. And it's considered very important.
Wow.
Yeah. So the idea here is that in Israel is that you want the child to acclimate to society, to develop friends, to develop social circles. And apparently Israelis believe the earlier, in general, the earlier, the better. So she was saying, you know, I
Interesting.
haven't, unfortunately, he's with his father because I haven't put him in daycare yet. But at 8 months old, he's going to need a chevre. He's going to need a group of friends when he's 8 months old, and he's going to need to go into the daycare then. It's going to be really good for him, and we're really looking forward to it. And we're just trying to hang in there as much as we can until we can release the baby to the daycare. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Arielo. We will until we can
Wow.
release the
The kids
baby into
need love,
daycare.
a lot of love.
Yeah, so I was thinking about it and I was going, really, your baby needs a lot of friends? And she says, yeah, you know, what am I going to do with a baby at home all day? Like, we can watch some TV and like maybe play a little, like maybe he can play with his brother for a few minutes, but really he has nothing to do at home. It's so important for my baby in 3 more months when he's 8 months old to be able to have friends and have a social circle. So I found that, I'll tell you, Laura, I found it so horrifying. And I think that these are the kinds of children that grow up to end up in your clinic or in your hospital, in your programs. These types of children who are saying, my mom doesn't have time for me, you know, this kind of thing.
I get it. Yeah. I see the link with this. Yeah, because there's a lot of disconnect. And then, like you were saying, they feel that bond with the gangs and all the drugs and that world. So if they don't get it at home where it should start and have that foundation and the love, and we know money doesn't buy love. You can have all the wealth in the world. And I had a challenge with my professor the other night, and she was saying, well, you can say that, but that is not necessarily true, because maybe there is something else that the child is wanting to express, and even with the great wealth or whatever, they still don't have that way to do it, and they're suffering on the inside. So they want somebody like you as a counselor to figure it, then that's your job. So you can't come in with this stereotype that all wealthy kids are going to be spoiled brats, and you know, which got me to think outside the box a little bit with that. A lot, because she's a school psychologist with female girls that are very challenged here near where I live, and she calls it the female girl prison, that these girls have been trafficked, sex, you know, at a very young age, and have done everything under the sun, and they're in the system. So she knows that you have to find ways to work with them and teach them other life skills. So it's just so I try to say to myself, these are young adults. They're not little kids. They're teens, yes, but they're not kids. They're grown, and they are developing in many ways. So it's a real puzzle to figure out. You know, I'm learning as I do this work.
I'm going to ask Chava if she would share a story. We've shared it before, but it's so incredible because it talks about, especially when you're talking about females, about what happens when you take away baby animals from their mothers and kind of where that goes. I don't know if you wouldn't mind sharing that, Chava.
What we talked about before. Okay. So I have a lot of animals on my farm, and we deal with births, obviously, and animals are kind of easy to watch because they don't have the trauma and the histories and the families and, you know, all the environmental influences. Animals are just easy. They need food, they need water, and they need their parents until a certain time. So when they're born, either the mother is, you know, getting ready for the second birth, because usually they have multiple. So she doesn't always lick every single thing right off the baby, right off the bat. So we kind of step in and clear its nose out and dry it off if she's not doing it. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to pick the baby up and check the sacs and, you know, make sure he's whole. As soon as you pick the baby up, he starts screaming his little lungs out. And then the mother freaks out because, where'd you take my baby? I need him right here with me.
Right.
And so you can see that attachment right from the birth, right from when it
That's
starts.
amazing.
Yeah. And so you put the baby back down. I'm sorry. And she cleans him off and does what she needs. And then everybody's happy. But as soon as you remove that baby, and I'm talking right there in the same spot, just lifting him up, you've shattered that bond that's so needed to be. So you learn a lot from it. But you also learn this attachment from the moment they're born, how important that bond is. And then once it's broken, so I put her back down, but humans, right? So they take him into the other room, and then they clean him up, and they vaccinate him, and then when he comes home, then someone else picks him up, and then it just continues throughout their lives. But goats, it's very easy to watch and understand the connection, and then carry it over to humans.
Are they horses that you have?
We also have horses and sheep and goats and rabbits and dogs. It carries throughout every animal. Yeah.
Wow, that's wonderful.
One of the things that Chava had mentioned before also is that a lot of times in the farming world, or just in general, how human beings relate to animals, is we remove baby animals from their mothers very early and then sell them or give them to another family or whatever. And so the babies don't really have any experience of being mothered by its mother. And the mother doesn't have that kind of a priori experience of mothering its young. And when you do that, even for that first generation, when you take that baby away early on, and that baby grows up and becomes a mother itself, it doesn't know how to mother. It didn't have any example. And I feel like that's exactly what we're seeing in our society today.
Yeah, there's a famous woman, her name's Temple Grandin, who's worked with animals, and she's written books and made a movie with that bond and what they teach us. And I'm a high believer with that, because animals are very therapeutic. I always wanted to do some kind of work with horses, like equestrian therapy, because they do it with veterans that have PTSD that come back from wars. And they find that the bonding with the horse, just walking the horse and making eye contact, not learning any riding or anything, just doing that connection, because horses are predators and very smart, that it helps therapeutically. It's powerful. It's so amazing. So I get it, what you're talking about. Yeah.
Can I just ask, do you see breakthroughs? Do you see a reversal and then not coming back? Like, is there progress in the therapies that you're using, or you, like, what are the therapies?
I see a little of it. I don't see, I'd say maybe 20 out of 80%. It's really tough, because they've been doing it so long, and they're resistant, very defiant, and it's just really sad. But I do see a little bit, but I wish there would be more programs and more ways creatively to work with these kids, because they're kind of pushed to the wayside in our society. I feel there's so many kids, like my teacher talked about this hospital in New York City that has Bridge for Babies program, and they're babies that were born with no parent, that are just left and in this program, and they have the staff hold the babies, and they cuddle the babies just to give them that bond and that comfort. And it's a great program. And Princess Diana would always come when she came to New York. She would come to hold and cuddle the babies, and she was involved with that program and sponsored it. And I just think it's love. It all comes down to that early stage of the love, and the parents should be very active with the kids. And there's some kind of breakdown. I don't understand it. I'm learning as I go through it, but
the 20% breakthroughs that you are seeing, can you think of anything that led to those breakthroughs? Like, is there a specific kind of therapy that's working for that 20%?
Yeah, it's funny you asked that. I had one girl who came from an area where my mother used to ride horses. My mother was a famous rodeo cowgirl. And she says, oh, we have horses on our farm, and we have goats, and we have cats and dogs, and I even have a pet rat. And I said, really? I said, this is really fascinating. And we started talking about animals as I was working in the group, and it led to everybody, all the other kids were like, wow, we've never met anybody like you. You know, they're in their city, they come from Brooklyn, or they don't know what it's like with the lifestyle she was describing. I knew exactly, because she told me she rode the trails where the ranch was, where my mother rode. And she says, this is really helping me talking about it. I can't wait to get home and be with the animals. And my brother was born mute, and my parents got the animals for his condition. So right when she said that, I said, aha, that was therapy. And she says, my dad's a stoner. I catch him in the barn smoking pot all the time. And I'm seeing she's learning this behavior from her father, you know, with the marijuana and whatever else she's doing. But she said, my dad's very successful, you know, and he works. And it was just like this connection. I was seeing how she was saying the animals were soothing to her. So it was great to see that.
Was that a common theme, or just this one person with the 20%?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. It broke up.
I was saying, is this animal therapy responsible for this 20% of breakthroughs? Do you feel that this is the one thing that's been getting through?
Yep, I really do, because they have a program that was developed with veterans, and that were drug addicted veterans upstate. And it was so powerful that now they've grown the program. They've opened other writing programs, you know, therapeutic writing for autism and different other disabilities with children. And Lowell knows about it, because Lowell's mother came up to see me and actually had rope and lassoing, and it was really wonderful. They were learning trunk control, you know, with different you know, problems, and it was really therapeutic. And I just see that they need to have more programs like that with horses, because there's another drug program upstate that has horses for the adults and the kids, and it helps them so much. I met a young guy in my adult program. He said, oh, I was, you know, at this program, and I got to learn how to, you know, take care of the horse, brush it down, clean the stall, ride and bond with the horse. And they even have dogs in the prisons here in New York at Rikers. They have a animal assisted therapy program that helps the inmates while they're in prison. They're training these dogs, you know, that are golden retrievers, babies, to be eye-seen dogs. And you know, it's just wonderful. I just see the therapeutic value with animals.
It sounds like, among other things, there's two things that are standing out for me. It may, you know, maybe the other ladies can comment, but one thing is that the teens seem to be getting an opportunity to be loving and also to be responsible.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're in a relationship with like a teacher or peers or with another adult, it's kind of like, you know, they're even unable to figure out how to enter into a healthy relationship with any of those people. But with an animal, once they are the caretaker, they're able to demonstrate love, both love and caring, and even empathy, and some of the quietude you need to connect with animals. And then also the responsibility of cleaning up after them and grooming them and that sort of thing.
It gives them structure. They have something to look forward to,
Right.
and know that it's a responsibility. And that's the idle time, I see a lot of these kids, they just want to hang out. And I say, do what? They said, I don't want to do anything. I never want to work. I don't want to do anything. And that's where it's going to take one mistake where they're going to get something laced, because we're having a big thing with fentanyl here, with marijuana that's laced, it kills them and they overdose and they go to the ER and they die. And it's very scary. I see it running wild. Just take one mistake with them and it's scary, you know.
I think that with the
Sad.
dogs, with the animals, it's not just the responsibility and giving love and empathy. There's the physical touch, and it's a safe physical touch, because, you know, safe physical touch might be an issue for some of these people. And it's also being loved unconditionally by an animal. The animal will come to you. You can touch and pet the animal and look in the animal's eyes, and the animal is happy to cuddle in your lap, whether you've just
Yes.
OD'd, whether you've just committed a crime, whether your parents are not proud of you, whether you just spoke back to a teacher, whether you just failed an exam. You might have the lowest self-esteem, but this animal can sense you and the good in you. And I think that that is one of the most overlooked aspects of these programs with animals.
I agree with you, definitely. Yeah.
Another important aspect of all of this that I see in my own children, because we have to deal with the animals every single day, cleaning for them, caring for them, is it projects off of themselves to take care of somebody else, to notice if they are harmed, if they're hurt, if they're sick, if they have a cut or whatever it happens to be. It takes, you know, a lot of these people that are OD, they have so much, I feel this and I feel that and I'm not happy, and it's all very self-absorbed just through the traumas that they've gone through. But when you have to care for something else because it depends on you, as now you're projecting out and now you're noticing this hurts him, he is not feeling well, he needs this kind of care. And then there's a whole aspect that just opens up your brain not to focus on yourself and what's bad and what's hurt and what makes you sad. Now you're caring for someone else. Yeah.
That's so powerful.
In Judaism, we learn that the cure for depression, okay, not disclaimer, not in all cases, not for everyone. This is a generalized rule of thumb, but a possible cure for depression would be doing chesed, doing acts of loving kindness for other people.
Beautiful.
And once someone is involved,
I like that.
Yeah, so do I. When someone is involved in that work of taking care of someone else, it's all the same kind of thing that we've been talking about. I think this is a really important facet, is what do you do when you have a teenager that's already kind of way off and way troubled, and you don't have adults in the teenagers' lives? I mean, obviously we're working over at Ancient Roots Mothering, trying to, and our respective, you know, businesses, trying to get the family back in order. But what do you do in a situation like that where the parent doesn't have the time, or there aren't parents involved, the kids are already in gangs, they're already addicted to one thing or another? What do you do to kind of stop the process? And so that it's really interesting about animals. It makes me think of two things. One being the teen mothers who are, you know, usually specifically, not all teen mothers, right? But specifically those who come from troubled backgrounds who say, I just want to have a baby of my own. Like they, dafka, on purpose, they go and try to get pregnant as teens and have babies so that they have someone to love, or as Gilla pointed out, someone to love them back unconditionally. That's what they're looking for. And the other thing was, the concern that people have about abusers abusing others. So, you know, or abusers who start with animals. And I would think that that might hold some people up from this animal therapy, because the assumption might be, oh, well, they beat up other people and they mistreat people. So obviously we can't put them with animals because they might mistreat the animals. But you're not finding that, are you?
No, you know, I've heard stories in the news, and it's heartbreaking with abuse to animals, and I just look at that. You got me thinking now, because you look at those kind of situations, and then you got the kids who are feeling abused and come from abusive families or dysfunction, and it's like, so what is the intervention here? We got animals, we have humans that are struggling the same way, and that's the puzzle piece that I know that's powerful, that there needs to be more people that want to do this kind of work and do these kind of. I'm in the city, I'm in the Bronx, so I know it's harder for me to find these kind of farms, programs, which I really would love to be involved with, because I know that the work is powerful. And so that's food for thought. Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering if maybe Gilla and Chava and I, to try and fill in the missing link, maybe that's what we can do with the remainder of our time, is
Thank you.
thinking about some of the, I know probably for Chava and Gilla as well, because we homeschool and we're very connected with our children, and this is kind of our priority. Oftentimes we have some of the kids who are not having such good connections at their homes come to our house and want to hang out at our house. I don't know if that happens for Gilla and Chava. Does that happen, that you have like a Ben Bite or something? The kids who come over after school or whatever, because there isn't anybody there?
No, we live in an area where I think most of the their mothers or whatever are at home. There's pretty close connection out here. There's other problems, but that's not one of them here.
I mean, my older kids, I mean, we've had some of their friends come stay for a week or whatever when they were having issues with their parents. But I think that, as I'm listening to you, I'm understanding, if I'm correct, assuming that these young adults are in the program not voluntarily.
Correct.
And I think there's a huge difference, because addiction can happen to pretty much any of our kids. And, they can come from the most loving families. You can have someone who suffers anxiety, and it's very easy to get addicted to something that helps, even after trying, everything natural and being in therapy and having support from your parents. So I think we have to be very careful what we say, not to come off judgmentally. This can really happen to anyone. I think the fact that parents and families be involved, anybody in the family, for example, I know that when it's voluntary programs, they have a lot of them in South Florida, and they involve the family. That could be a close friend, that could be an aunt or an uncle or a grandparent or a godmother. But once you involve somebody that they feel close to, safe with, that person will be educated as well as to how to help that young adult and to love them unconditionally, but not to accidentally enable them as well. And so I think programs that include that are going to be way more successful, especially in young adults who are in a program and they didn't volunteer. When you have someone who goes voluntarily to a program like that, the success rate is much higher. But when you're dealing with defiance and you're dealing with, I don't want to be here, sometimes trying to get that and emulate that unconditional love from someone can really help them get through to the other side.
I agree. Yeah.
It would be ideal if they could, if each one of these kids could have someone vouch for them and come into the program, like Gilla said. But what if there isn't anybody to come? How do the people, and it's not voluntary, how do the people, the caretakers, I guess, or the instructors or the therapists, is there something that can be done, Gilla, do you think?
So again, in some of the voluntary programs that I know of locally, anybody who works in the programs is has been through recovery themselves. And you get one-on-one mentoring as well. Your mentor has been through this program. So I think that that is such a big deal, because you're getting support from someone who has stood more or less in your shoes. They may not have been through all your life experiences, but they've been through addiction and they've got to the other side. And I think that's a really, really important part, whether it's the person serving food, whether it's the person, driving you to your therapy, whether it's the person, working with you to help you get your schoolwork done. It doesn't matter. Each and every person who's involved, and really the big deal is the people that you're dealing with every day in the kitchen and in, whatever it is in your day-to-day, in your life skills, in your day-to-day life skills, having them being the mentors, having been through a program, and then you have the young adults able to connect. And when you connect and attach with someone, you're already halfway there in the healing process.
Mm-hmm.
And also, yeah, go ahead.
I was just wondering if they work on them on this emotional level, do they also work on with them, dietary and all that other, balancing their hormones and trying to build up, minerals that are deficiency that a lot of times brings on these drug addictions? Are they working on them many levels, or they're just trying to get to them first?
I see, like with the kids I have, that would be a helpful thing if they had a dietary group. And I will suggest that to the director, because these kids get a nice box lunch that comes in with hot food or sandwiches, and they'll take one bite of something and throw it in the garbage and say, I want something else, and this is crap. And it's really sad, the waste that goes on. I see it all the time, and this entitlement, and they need that structure to have that wellness piece, I think, because the drugs take a lot out of their system. And I had one girl say to me on my inpatient unit the other day, I'm a fatty, look at all this blubber on me. I want to exercise and I want to get back in shape, because she was so drug addicted. And now that she is getting off the drugs by being hospitalized, she's fiending herself. They call it fiending, where she's using food as the drug and putting that into her body that's making her overweight and obese. So it's an interesting area to explore. Yeah.
Sometimes just a fresh salad bar can solve all these problems, with
That would be nice.
not only with the fresh vegetables, but we talked in one of our Ancient Roots Mothering podcasts about toddlers and how they need to eat frequently, and teens are the same. I mean, we all have teens, the three of us, and so they're hungry. They're always eating. But having a salad bar also is like having some kind, like legumes, like like lentils, chickpeas, peanuts, whatever, different things available, and then they can just choose what they want. And it's an acquired taste to eat a salad for someone who isn't accustomed to that. But there can be salad dressings on the side, and they might even be homemade salad dressings that are like in oil and vinegar with different herbs in it and this sort of thing. That might be one thing to offer. but it's you're setting them for a lifelong process. Even that might be a good segue, a good transition.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was just reading in the New York Times that they're doing a lot of horticulture programs. They're finding plants are very healing with young kids with depression and adults, and growing the different vegetables. And they're bringing in these programs into some of the major hospitals in New York where they're eating what they grow and making salads, and it's successful. So I believe in that.
I think that a lot of these things need to be implemented at the grassroots level, meaning not wait for organizations. So whether it's bringing a blender in once a week and asking, make smoothies and empowering, giving over tools and empowering, and say, what would you like in your smoothie?
Yes.
Do you want banana, strawberry, peach, mango? And maybe every week, and then have 2 people be in charge of making the smoothies as a rotation twice a week.
I think that would be good.
And when it comes to growing, everyone can have a plant, even on a windowsill. And they can be, they can choose. Do you want basil, oregano, thyme? I mean, whatever it is, little mini tomatoes can grow on a windowsill, and you don't need a huge organization, and it doesn't need to be expensive. And if each one has a little plant in their room that they water, and they see something that grows, and they even get 3 tomatoes, that's such a big deal. It's empowering. And you don't need a whole program for that. There's little things that can be implemented and can make such a difference to a person's life.
Sometimes
that's why I did the tea with him.
Sometimes in the city, it's easy to get, to start grassroots, but actually get some kind of city grant to just find a little empty lot, even a small little piece, and have that be a community garden. And the Irish Herbalists Association, I'm probably butchering their exact name, but they had an amazing project going on that they started maybe 4 or 5 years back, where they were coming into schools and they had a little starter kit. This was totally grassroots. They just reached out to the local herbalists in their area, and they would get, you could take, those egg crates, egg cartons that eggs come in.
Oh, right.
So they would collect a bunch of those, and then they would kind of fill it up with dirt. Like someone had a little plot of land and volunteered to put dirt in. And then they would have seeds or little starters. So they would, they would grow certain herbs, and they would bring it into the schools. And then they made a curriculum to teach the children about it. So for example, they would have chamomile or lavender, and they would take it into the schools in these little egg crates, and the classroom would decide where they want to plant it. Each school would decide. It might be in a little pot on a windowsill, or it might be outside in a little empty lot, a little sidewalk. They just move some of the gravel out of the way and put dirt down and plant them. And not only are they planting them and they're taking them into the schools, but they're teaching the children, which of course could be utilized here, how to take these herbs for specific medicinal needs. So something like an anxiety, you might want to look at a lavender, or an upset tummy ache, an upset stomach. You might want to look at a chamomile, and simple things that are very empowering for the children to do. They know how to heal themselves. And especially for people that are dealing with drug addiction, sometimes when they go into the Western medical model, where there's like a pill for every ill, it just contributes more to that addiction. And so they're, okay, they've got off the drugs, but then their stomach hurts, and they've got a sore throat, and they go to a doctor and they're given a different kind of drug, But if they're looking to the plants, it's a really different relationship with illness and with addiction and with healing.
That's funny you say that because, one of my boys said, I want to be work with plants and grow the plants, and he knew the value of the healing. He said this lavender makes you calm and relaxed, and yeah, it's powerful.
You can tell them about ancientrootsisrael.com. Just behind me, Ancient Roots Israel, the first international herbal conference and community in Israel. But if he's not connected with Israel, then there are plenty of herbalists in the United States that he could connect to. I'm sure just one phone call from a caring person in part of your organization to an herbalist could bring that herbalist in to talk about it for free.
I think that's a great
herbalists
idea.
are always talking for free.
That's wonderful information. I'm going to look into it.
I remember
part of it is
This has been a great talk.
I just think these ideas of tapping into the community are amazing because, you know, that you really can. You can go ask people who have experience and who know, and many times they'll graciously and happily share and want to contribute and share and do a skill share.
There's a store, a man, I think he's in Watts or somewhere where it's also gangs and drugs and, you know, very hard neighborhood. And he decided one day he picked up a shovel and he has, you know, a tiny little front yard, tiny, but he picked up a shovel and he started planting things. And then some of the kids in the neighborhood, and then it grew to this huge thing. And now they, you know, people volunteer their little tiny plot of land. And now the kids are into it and it gets them off the street and it helps them. And he just took over this whole thing. I forget what it was called, shovels or something. I don't know, but it was a great program. And he just started it by taking a shovel and people saw him. He didn't even say, come here and look at this. They were like, what are you doing? And then it gets their creativity juices moving. And then why are you planting that? And he says, well, it's for food. We need to plant our own food. Why not? And then they get excited because they're doing something for themselves and for the community. Right. And it grew and it grew and it grew. And now he's all over in that area.
That's great.
Yeah. We had a retired doctor who came to our village and he wanted to make a memorial for someone who had died here. And so he got this big piece of this big rock that he found. And he had like a few chiseling supplies. And he started chiseling the rock. And just like Chava said in her story, people were coming up to him going, what are you doing? And he would say, well, here, pick up a chisel if you want to help. He, you know, he's like, just, you see where I, you know, wrote in chalk what I'm doing here? Just chisel along those lines. And it ended up turning into a community project where he just left. I mean, I know it's probably not feasible in New York to leave your chest of tools outside, but he left his chest of tools outside and said, anyone who wants to participate, come and just join in the chiseling. You know, there's certainly things to do without needing tools that could get stolen or something like that. But maybe bringing someone into the facility, just one person who's doing a sculpture, especially because it isn't voluntary, that these are children who are in here because they have to be. Maybe having somebody off in the corner or off in a room and say, you know what, you don't need to be here. You don't want to be here. There's no reason to fight and get angry. If you want to go over there and chisel some rock or, you know, so with that guy over there, and that guy's just always sitting there chiseling rock, making something cool. It just seems like there's so many creative solutions to a really not ideal situation like what you're working in right now.
Great idea. So nice talking with you all, and it's been really good to me to hear all this and take some of these ideas to help me in my journey with work. I'm so happy to meet you all and have this time to share. Thank you.
Wishing you much luck on your journey.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, it should be
Appreciate
good for you.
it.
You should do extraordinary things, continue to do extraordinary things. And we'll have to hear your rodeo stories next time.
Thank you. Yeah. Dear to my heart.
Thank you for having us. It's so nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Be well.